What if everything you knew about England's most powerful dynasty was a lie? Behind the golden portraits and royal titles lurk secrets so dark they were buried for centuries. Whispers of murdered princes, queens who hid monstrous deformities, and a virgin queen who may never have been a woman at all. These are not fairy tales or tavern gossip. They are real conspiracies recorded by diplomats, courtiers, and terrified eyewitnesses. Today, we will uncover 5 conspiracy theories that shook the Tudors, each revealing a crack in the mask of royal perfection. Watch until the end, because theory number 5 could change everything we believe about the Tudor bloodline. But before we peel back the veil of royal deception, click like and subscribe to join history's hidden horrors, where the past never rests in peace. Or number 1. The Bisley boy theory was England's greatest queen. Actually a hidden prince. Imagine a kingdom that worshipped its virgin queen, only to discover she was never a woman at all. The Bisley boy theory is one of the most unsettling conspiracies in English history. It claims that Elizabeth, first daughter of Henry VIII, and Anne Boleyn, died as a child and was secretly replaced by a boy. Legend says that when Elizabeth was around 10 years old, she was sent to the quiet village of Bisley to escape an outbreak of plague in London. Henry VIII, known for his unpredictable rage, planned a surprise visit to see his beloved daughter. But disaster struck. The young princess fell ill and died suddenly, days before the king's arrival. Her governess, terrified of Henry's wrath, a king who had murdered wives and ministers without hesitation, scrambled for a solution. In desperation, she searched the village for a child who could replace Elizabeth, even for a day, to spare their lives. The only child who resembled her closely enough was a red-haired local boy. The governess dressed him in Elizabeth's royal gowns, taught him to curtsy and speak softly. When Henry arrived, he was grief-stricken by her weakened state, but did not suspect the truth. Some say he spent little time with his children, making it easy for the deception to hold. But the day became a lifetime. The boy was never revealed. He was trained in royal ways, crowned queen at 25, and ruled for 44 years as the Virgin Queen. Supporters of this theory point to Elizabeth's famously heavy makeup, her refusal to marry, and doctors reporting she had a deformed or scarred body hidden beneath her layers of gowns and ruffs. Foreign ambassadors recorded rumors that her ladies-in-waiting were banned from assisting her dressing, and that no one ever saw her unclothed. To historians, the Bisley boy theory is pure fantasy, a village legend that spiraled into myth. But for believers, it explains everything about Elizabeth's celibacy, her deep masculine energy in ruling a patriarchal world, and her dying words, "I will have no rascal succeed me." Was England ruled by a virgin queen, or a frightened boy who wore her crown until the grave? Number 2. Maria's phantom pregnancy, the queen who longed for an heir and faced rumors of monstrous birth. She was known as Bloody Mary, the queen whose reign was stained with the screams of Protestants burned at the stake. But beneath her iron rule and unbending faith lay a woman desperate for one thing, a child to secure her crown. In 1554, Mary I married Philip of Spain, soon after she announced she was pregnant. Her belly swelled visibly, her appetite changed, and her court buzzed with joy. Cradles were carved with Tudor roses, midwives prepared their herbs and linen, and England waited for the prince who would keep Catholic power alive. As the months passed, her chambers filled with gifts, prayers, and anxious whispers. But then her due date came and went. Days turned to weeks. Still, there was no child's cry from the royal nursery. Mary remained secluded, refusing to admit the truth. Her belly slowly shrank, leaving her pale, weakened, and hollow-eyed. Today, historians call it a phantom pregnancy, a cruel trick of the mind, where the body manifests all signs of life that does not exist. But the Tudor world saw something far darker. Rumours slithered through London's taverns and churches. Some said she had given birth to a stillborn creature covered in black fur. Others claimed it was a dog, a punishment from God for her merciless burnings. The most grotesque whisper told of a rotting mass of flesh, neither child nor animal, that died moments after emerging, filling the birthing chamber with a stench of decay. To her enemies, these stories confirmed divine justice. A queen soaked in innocent blood could never birth an heir. To her supporters, they were blasphemous lies meant to undermine her fragile rule. But in the minds of the people, Mary became something cursed, a woman whose womb produced horror instead of hope. She never recovered. Another phantom pregnancy followed before her death at 42, her body wasting from cancer, her spirit broken by betrayal and failure. Her dream of a Catholic heir died with her, swept away by the rise of her half-sister Elizabeth I. Whether Mary's pregnancy was a tragic delusion or the spark of terrifying legend, it left a stain on her reign that no coronation jewel could ever conceal. Number 3. Anne Boleyn's 6 fingers. Did England's most hated queen hide the devil's mark? She was the woman who broke a kingdom in two. Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII, seduced a king away from his Spanish queen, helped tear England from the Catholic Church, and crowned herself queen. But the same tongues that praised her beauty soon twisted her legacy into darkness. When Henry's love soured and Anne faced execution, her enemies spread vicious rumors to justify her death. Among the most persistent was the claim that Anne Boleyn had 6 fingers on her right hand. They whispered she kept her extra finger hidden under long sleeves and ornate cuffs. In Tudor superstition, such a deformity was not merely a flaw. It was the mark of a witch-proof she consorted with demons to seduce and manipulate the king. Some even claimed she had a large mole or third nipple on her neck or chest, another sign of her demonic familiar feeding from her flesh. Chroniclers sympathetic to Henry called her a temptress who used dark arts to cloud the king's mind and weaken his reason. To them, her 6th finger was evidence of her unholy power, the claw of Satan emerging through her royal silks. But how true was this tale? No official portrait shows Anne with any deformity. Her enemies at trial, eager to ruin her completely, never mentioned it in court. Even Spanish ambassador Eustace Chapuis, who despised her and called her the concubine, never recorded it. The rumor appears decades later, first written by Catholic propagandist Nicholas Sander, who sought to demonize her legacy under Elizabeth's Protestant reign. Historians today believe the story was an invention, a grotesque metaphor turned into a false physical detail to tarnish her name forever. After all, would Henry VIII, obsessed with perfection in lineage and appearance, have chosen a queen marked by such a visible abnormality? Yet the legend lives on. In every retelling, her 6 fingers curl like claws around England's memory of her. Whether truth or lie, it sealed her image not as a victim of power's cruelty, but as a witch queen whose touch corrupted a kingdom. In the end, Anne Boleyn's greatest curse was not witchcraft, but a legacy twisted so completely that even centuries later, her ghost cannot walk without whispers of the devil following each step. Number 4. Arthur Dudley. Did the Virgin Queen hide a royal heir, or was he just a pretender? She ruled as the Virgin Queen, the monarch who married no man, bore no child, and vowed England would be her only love. But in 1587, a shadow fell across that perfect image when a young man appeared in Spain with a claim so shocking it rattled both courts. His name was Arthur Dudley. Captured by Spanish authorities after his ship wrecked on their coast, he revealed an extraordinary secret. Speaking fluent English and carrying himself with aristocratic grace, Arthur claimed he was the son of Elizabeth I and her favorite, Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester. He told his interrogators that he had been raised by a royal household official. On his deathbed, this guardian confessed that Arthur was no ordinary child. According to the story, Elizabeth fell pregnant in the early years of her reign. Her ladies-in-waiting, sworn to secrecy, arranged a concealed birth to avoid scandal and the destruction of her throne. The infant was secretly handed to this official, raised in comfort, but never told the truth until his guardian lay dying. Afterwards, Arthur sought out Robert Dudley himself. He claimed Dudley wept upon seeing him and confessed his paternity, warning Arthur that his existence could cost them both their lives. To protect him, Dudley arranged passage abroad, far from Elizabeth's court. In Spain, his story caused a stir. For their part, the Spanish suspected he was a spy fabricating lineage to gain favor or intelligence. He was imprisoned and interrogated repeatedly. Records show that while Spanish officials doubted his claims, they were struck by his education, courtly manner, and familiarity with royal customs. No trial was held, no execution ordered. Arthur Dudley simply vanished from the historical record, a ghost of a prince who might have been. Historians today dismiss his claims as fantasy or espionage ruse. There is no evidence that Elizabeth I ever bore a child. Her life was scrutinized relentlessly by allies and enemies alike, and pregnancy would have been impossible to hide. But believers argue that Elizabeth's near-complete seclusion, guarded chambers, and absolute control over her household could have concealed what others never imagined possible. Was Arthur Dudley a liar, a spy, or the greatest royal secret ever buried? No matter the truth, his story haunts the myth of the Virgin Queen, a reminder that even legends built upon purity may hide flesh and blood truths darker than any crown can bear. Number 5. The death of Fitzroy. Did Henry VIII sacrifice his own blood to secure the Tudor throne? Before Edward VI, before the desperate marriages and beheadings for a son, Henry VIII already had a male heir, Henry Fitzroy. Born in 1519 to his mistress Elizabeth Blount, Fitzroy was Henry's only acknowledged illegitimate child. The king adored him, showering him with titles, Duke of Richmond, Duke of Somerset, and raising him almost as a prince. There were whispers that if Henry never produced a legitimate son, he would make Fitzroy his heir, legitimizing him by royal decree. But Fitzroy's life ended abruptly at just 17. In July 1536, barely months after Anne Boleyn's execution, and only weeks after Henry married Jane Seymour, Fitzroy fell sick and died. Official records blamed tuberculosis, yet his death set tongues wagging across England's courts. Why would a healthy teenage duke described as strong and athletic die so suddenly? Some believed it was natural. Consumption took many lives. But others saw darker forces at play. One theory claimed Anne Boleyn, desperate to clear the path for her own children, plotted his poisoning. Her enemies used this rumor against her at trial. Yet if Anne wanted him gone, why would Fitzroy die after her execution? Then came the more chilling theory that Henry VIII himself ordered Fitzroy's death. By 1536, Henry was reshaping England's succession laws. With Anne's daughter, Elizabeth, now declared illegitimate, and Mary already cast aside, Henry focused everything on securing a legitimate son. Fitzroy, though loved, remained a bastard. His mere existence as an older male Tudor threatened to divide loyalty among nobles if Edward VI was born. Poison was a quiet solution to prevent civil war over claims to the throne. Historians remain divided. No direct evidence links Henry to his son's death, but some note the king's cold reaction. There was no grand funeral, no elaborate tomb for the boy he once cherished. Fitzroy's body was buried quietly in Thetford Priory, later moved to Framlingham without the honors typically reserved for royalty. Perhaps Henry's grief was too deep to display, or perhaps guilt kept him silent. In the end, Fitzroy remains a ghost in Tudor history, the prince who could have been king, erased from succession by death's swift hand. Whether it came from disease, courtly poison, or a father's ruthless will, his fate reminds us that in the shadow of a throne, even blood cannot guarantee mercy. These were 5 conspiracy theories that shook the Tudors. Tales of impostors, monstrous births, witchcraft, and royal murders hidden behind velvet curtains. But in our next episode, we descend deeper into horror to unveil 5 horrific deaths under Henry VIII's reign, where torture, execution, and human cruelty reached their darkest extremes. If you wish to continue exploring history's hidden horrors, click like and subscribe to join us, where the past never rests in peace.